How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to episode 2 of the Beacon Breakdown. My name is Keegan Laird Thompson. Today I am joined once again by my good friend Tristan Leonard. You feel free to introduce yourself.
I was just, I'm already ruining today's broadcast. The first week went so well, and now I'm off the rails already 1 minute in. So,
You're off the camera. I got this space all to myself now.
I'm Tristan Leonard. I'm Director of Campus Recreation and Wellbeing, also pseudo Director of Esports. So happy to be back today. Happy I didn't get booted off the show after one episode. So
Yeah, yeah.
thanks, Keegan.
You would have been, but our guest of the hour couldn't make it today. So we're stuck with this guy for one more week, but I'm not happier to share the screen with anyone else today. So before we get into our special interview, Tristan, we're going to discuss, this week's happenings here in the realm of esports. And, since it's the one I know the most about, we're going to start with Smash. So Smash, as most of you are aware, we're competing in two different conferences this year. And we've completed all of our placements for NECC. Our bracket and our division, our conference has been decided. We're going to be in one of the northern divisions because it's based off of geography. Thank God, because Wi-Fi is not fun to play on across the country. Um, so we suffered our first loss in GLEC, the Great Lakes Esports Conference, this past Friday to Franklin University. They're a new team, so the quest to have the first seed going into playoffs gets a little bit more difficult from here. And as for singles, Weston and myself are competing on those every Friday. Those aren't streamed, but we're making some pretty good progress. I've think the completion matches are finished, and we're going to be going into the next thing. So next up, let's just knock Overwatch out because that's the easier one. They're still waiting for their game to come out. There's nothing really to report there, but they're working hard here in the lab every night. Tristan, you've seen them around, I imagine.
Yeah, and we're still actually rounding the roster out. It's still getting to the point where we've had some extra time now to really, um, you know, uh, work people out, go through tryouts, and really see where we're gonna go. So yeah, we're now getting to the point where we're finalizing things. But yeah, I think it's gonna be about another week or two before we actually get into some action.
Right, and that's gonna get turned on its head once Overwatch 2 comes out because some people might not survive the transition, and we're gonna have to redesign rosters overall again. But I've got nothing but confidence in that team. By the way, our national run team this past year, so nothing but high hopes for them. As for League, I believe they started competing this past weekend, or maybe they've been competing for 2 weeks.
Yeah, league's on fire right now. So they ended up winning their GLEC matchup this past Saturday with a 2-0 win. But then they actually just completed activation in the NECC. They actually went 4-0 in activation. And fun fact, that's back-to-back semesters that they've gone undefeated in preseason. So really looking forward to see what their schedule looks like this week, who they're going to play, and see what they can do.
Yeah, I'm gonna take my glasses off because I can see the glare in the cameras, so it's a little bit easier to personalize it the audience that way. So I'm excited for League as well. Consistently one of our grittiest teams here, and they work very hard. Other than Overwatch, they're the team I see in here consistently the most. So I'm again still high expectations for them as well. Coming up next, let's talk about Rocket League because they've been, doing a lot of roster changes this year, trying to finalize everything. I've been talking with Mr. Murphy, who's been trying to decide who he wants to bring in with him. And frankly, I think they have a good roster filled up. The fact that they're having this much difficulty deciding on a starting roster, considering the amount of talent they have, is nothing but a good thing.
Yeah, and Valpo Brown, Valpo Gold, doesn't matter which one we're talking about, but Coach Jeff is very excited about both rosters. He actually just came to me the other day and said, "Hey, watch out for Valpo Brown. Rocket League Brown is one of those teams that was this close last year. There were 5 or 6 games in the spring season that could have gone either way. The full roster's back. Last year's roster had 2 freshmen on the team, and so it took them a while to get in that groove. Now that they're in year 2 of this core four, they're ready to go. And yeah, Gold looking to turn things around. We have a couple of new players there too. I know activation games this past Friday was a little bit of an odd roster setup. I think someone couldn't show or had some sort of class issue going on. But yeah, again, NECC starts this week. We're really getting excited for where it's going to go, and Rocket League's another one we're watching.
So after them, that would bring us to the iRacing team. and I hear Ricky's been trying to figure out his roster as well, and I think he's been training the new guys up in a big way, and I think they've been very willing to commit and try new things, and it seems like he's very happy with who he has backing him up this year.
And we actually had a prospect series race last week, so there was a cool shot from the iRacing stream, collegiate iRacing stream, where it had actually all three Valpo cars in a line, and I know they were racing each other at that point, but it was cool to see all three Valpo shields on the hoods. But yeah, all four racers were in action this past week, and putting pedal to the metal.
Man, they're so much better than the rest of the competition. They have to just compete with each other, and that's what you like to see. Ricky, clearly a good coach as well as a good team captain for that group because them being able to be that good this quickly has been astounding. Because I know most of them just picked it up. They probably picked it up towards the end of last year, but they've been working hard. Haven't had much opportunity over the summer because equipment for that's a little harder to come by these days. But I'm very impressed with them as well. I believe that's everyone. Has our card game team been having any competitions yet?
We did. We actually had our first competition of the year this past Saturday. NACE is going to have 3 qualifier tournaments for Hearthstone throughout the fall. So this past Saturday was the first. I believe we just had one player, correct, Michael? Just one. Yeah, we had one player. Nolan got in on the action. Didn't make it to day 2, but again, this was just the first qualifier of the fall. So um, a lot of fun to see that team get up and running.
Right. So, I believe this is going to bring us into our main focus of discussion today. Obviously, the esports team here doing some big things, trying to make some steps in the right direction. Most of their seasons are just about to get underway, and hopefully you can catch them all right here on twitch.tv/Valpo Esports. So, but hey, as for right now, Tristan, we're going to be discussing a topic today that's I know is very, very near and dear to your heart here as the head of recreational sports here at Valpo's campus. We're going to be discussing the intimacies of using physical health to associate to your mental health and your health within the esports realm.
This is something that you shot me the message that hey, this is going to be the topic today, and I immediately just I jumped out of my chair. I was so excited to come talk about this. It's something I'm very passionate about. I was on a talk show this over the summer, speaking with a host, and I said, hey, this is where I get on my soapbox. I'm very passionate about mental health, mental wellness, and specifically then physical fitness as it breaks into all this and how we can work on that. So I think it's something that's overlooked quite a bit when it comes to collegiate esports, and I think it's something we need to shed the light on.
Yeah, because there's this perception, right, about gamers, where it's just they lock themselves in their rooms with their controller or their PC and they just game for hours, don't ever see the sunlight or anything. And while that can be true for some people, for the most part, especially at like the top level, most people need to find other outlets for their creativity and they need to try to unstress themselves out as much as possible. And a lot of them have found that exercising and going to the gym and stuff like that have been very beneficial for them. I mean, you go on TikTok, you go on Twitter, you look at some of like, your favorite pros on Team Liquid or CLG or what have you, and a lot of them also have, side stuff that they do where they promote their gym lives or most of them have energy drink sponsors and they go to the gym and work that stuff out. Where do you think the correlation lies with that part of competition?
Uh, I mean, it's all over the place. One thing too, especially when we're talking about collegiate esports, professional esports, when we're growing up, some players, I'm not going to speak for all, but I'll talk about myself. You know, Sometimes when I go to play and I turn on the Xbox, sorry, not PC, but when I turn on the
That's fine.
Xbox, that's that's my de-stress, right? That's where I go to kind of de-stress. I don't think about work. I don't think about anything else that might be going on, and that's where I go, hopefully to play well enough that I'm de-stressing. But when that's your job, or if that's something that you're doing day in or day out, sometimes you've lost that, right? If you're competing and you're practicing every single day a certain game, and then you go try to play for fun, it might not feel like fun, that because that's something that you're constantly dealing with. So sometimes you have to find a different outlet, something else that de-stresses you and go from there. And I think a lot of times people turn to physical fitness. There have been tons of times when I've been upset, or frustrated or something. I'm like, I'm just gonna go on a run. Or, I'll talk to a student. They're like, oh, this is making me really mad. I'm just gonna go lift, and get this anger out. So a lot of times, instead of having that de-stressor of the video game, then it's just exercise.
Yeah, yeah. Most and it's quite the opposite for most professional athletes in realms of baseball, football, and what have you, where their time to work is at practice or at the gym or what have you to work on their physical fitness. They take that seriously. They live, eat, and breathe that day out. So that might be a stressor for them as well. And they do the opposite. It's how the two work together.
Yeah, I mean, there are professional athletes that you see that have Twitch streams, because they when they're not working out or they're not working on their game, they jump on the Xbox. So it's just it can work both ways.
Right, right. I mean, I've seen people like Xavier Woods from the WWE have incredible success on the YouTube and the Twitch space because, obviously WWE, you need to have an insane level of physical fitness to compete in that realm, staged or otherwise. And then outside of that, just have something else that you do on the side as a side gig. So there seems to be a difference between like a competition and a de-stressor balance that most people find either in gaming or in personal fitness.
Yeah, again, what we talk about wellness or holistic wellness, it's going to be different for every single person. So it's really important to self-identify where you're at and what works best for you because, there's three of us in this room right now, and it might not work the same for each one of us. So it's really important to take a look at that.
So, moving on a little bit further to some of the more intimate parts of esports, a lot of people just, again, have this perception that, oh, well, some games can be very technically demanding on execution purposes. But a lot of people have this idea that esports are games of the mind. And that is true in a lot of regards. Absolutely, obviously, your execution plays a big part in that. But getting rattled in any high pressure situation can cause some people to crack. And what correlation is there between a gamer's mental state and physical fitness? How does one reinforce the other?
Oh boy, it's hard to to dial one thing
I'm
in,
asking you the hard questions here
right?
on the Beacon Breakdown.
I know it's been like 12 minutes. Yeah. So let's just go really basic.
Hmm.
I let's talk about heart rate. Someone who works out, we'll talk long distance runners, their heart rates are going to sit much lower than those who don't work out. It just is what it is. You're going to have some long distance runners where they're sitting, they might be sitting at the desk next to you and their heart rate is 52. They're and yours might be 80. If we go into the same video game together and my heart rate is 52 beats per minute and yours is 80 and we're both in the same stressful situation, your heart rate is going to elevate much higher than mine is, right? Just from a mental standpoint. So, I mean, at a real base level, if you think of it that way, physical fitness is going to help me in game in that sense, just from keeping me a little more calm, a little less anxious, as we're entering whatever game that might be. Um, Also from a stamina standpoint, if we're thinking about physical wellness and physical fitness, I mean, some of these gaming sessions go hours. I mean, League of Legends this past weekend was a best two of three. Only ended up going two games, and it went 2 hours. And they didn't even play game three. So it's something where um, it can impact so many different things within the realm of esports that people really don't correlate with at the same time.
Yeah, thank you, Tristan. And another number of other positive mental health benefits come along with working out and physical fitness as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, automatically just by getting up and getting moving, it's going to de-stress you. It's automatically going to help our physical, our mental and everything that goes along. So, see, now I'm starting to get on the soapbox. I actually taught health and wellness classes here on campus for a few years. It's just all so interlinked. Sleep, nutrition, physical, health and wellness. All of this is all together. When we have an area that's lacking, all the other areas are kind of go down with it. So we need to make sure that we're at peak levels for ourselves in order to perform correctly.
And on top of that, I think there's also something to be said about the fact that working out increases a person's confidence level as well as the amount of endorphins that they have in their brain. And bringing that into a competition space, whether it be for athletics or for test taking or even for esports, what we're talking about here, I feel like there's something to be said about coming into a room and feeling good. Not even necessarily that you go to the gym just to get gains and get, bigger muscles, bigger chest or whatever, but also, you just feel good about yourself because you feel like you accomplished something.
Oh, absolutely. And we again putting the teacher hat on. There's good stress and bad stress, and obviously pregame. If we're trying to get that confidence level up, we're trying to get that good stress level at. All of us are going to do it differently. Whether it's going for a walk, I've seen it. We'll take smash. I've seen people pace between games. I've seen people kind of get hyped and yell between games. Everyone is going to pump themselves up in a different way. Um, a great example of this is when you're pregame. We're watching NFL Sunday yesterday, and you see a pregame locker room shot of the athlete with their headphones on in the locker, just kind of sitting there going back and forth. Right? They're trying to find that level of good stress that is going to hype them up to perform optimally. And we all do it different ways. But again, yeah, I mean, going to the gym is going to make you feel more confident. Do it that way. For me, when I run, I have a specific music playlist that I run better to because it gets me going. So it's all going to be different across the board.
Yeah, of course. I'm gonna transition to, a little bit of a curveball for you. So, let me know if this isn't something that you're interested in talking about. But uh, meditation, I think, is something that a lot of other people preach as well. And not meditation in the sense of, sitting down somewhere with your legs folded, humming to yourself, which, it can be that if someone wants it to be, but also just like taking a moment, like you were talking about with the football player in the locker room, to just sit down and focus on your breathing.
No, 100%. It's something I struggle with. I'll come out right out and say I'm horrible at meditation. I'm really bad at yoga. For me, I like to move. I like to get going. That's just where my mind is. But mindfulness. When we used to talk meditation, it's just like you talked about, the humming, the sitting with the legs
Yeah.
crossed. That's how we used to think of my meditation. But mindfulness, that's the key word, and it's making sure that we're present in that moment. So whatever that means to you, again, sometimes it's sitting in a dark room, centering yourself, focusing yourself, whether it's just your brain, focusing on breathing, whatever that might be. But yeah, absolutely. I think mindfulness, meditation, they can all play a key part in helping us perform better.
So, going off of that point, for anyone who's, listening in from the team or from outside, and they want to try to use this stuff in their own life, what would you recommend for someone who, is trying to have a good balance of their gaming life with, trying to break into that physical fitness realm? What would you recommend as a good starting point for those people?
Starting slow. I think a lot of times whether it's, someone saying, hey, I want to eat better, or someone, I want to get to the gym more. I think a lot of times we jump in with both feet and we run, 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 and then we burn out. I'll think about myself, I'll say, hey, I need to really eat healthier. So I eat healthy for like 7 straight days, but I eat like too healthy, and it gets to a point where I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. The same thing happens with the gym. Being healthier, any level of physical fitness is going to help us out. Whether it's just walking around campus or going and lifting weights or running a marathon, it doesn't matter what level it is, but it's going to help us. It's going to help our hearts. It's going to help our minds, everything there. So starting small and then just adding more in, I think is the biggest key, at least for me personally. Finding that healthy level with our time management and what we can, and not doing too much, because the first thing we want to do is avoid burnout.
Right. And there's one other thing I'd like to discuss with you real quick too, Tristan. Obviously, you wear multiple hats on campus: head of rec sports, head coach of the esports team here. Um, how do you think the two could work together? Because obviously at Valpo we have a number of recreational sports programs on the campus. We have intramurals going on all the time. Obviously we have the fitness center that we've alluded to a number of times. For the team as well, what would you recommend? Like, do you think having competition in another space like intramurals with lower stakes would, help people manage their stress levels whenever it comes to an actual competition?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to keep saying the same thing over and all, but again, it's going to be different for all of us, right? I mean, there are days when I walk out of my office and I look out there and half the Overwatch team is lifting. Some teams do this on their own, or sometimes you step outside and half another team's going to be playing sand volleyball, or something along those lines. So again, any physical fitness is going to benefit the teams, but definitely having someone with you, an accountability buddy,
Yeah,
is going to help out because you're not doing it alone.
right. So that's about all the questions I had for you today, Tristan. But if oh oh oh, hang on, our production guy Mike has Mike, come on, Mike, here, get on the camera. I don't mean to put you on the spot like this, but you got a question, you gotta answer.
So quick question for Tristan. Oh, yes. I'm Michael Trevithick. I'm the grad assistant here at the Esports program. And just listening to you guys talk, I was thinking of a few questions for Tristan, a lot of things in this space. So I guess I just kind of wanted to hear, your thoughts on, the G Fuel, the Red Bull, all these different things that are, big in the gaming space that, a lot of people are taking.
I think again, these are my views, no one else's. But some of it is moderation. Um, Speaking from a personal standpoint, I used to be really big into energy drinks, uh, and I realized how bad it was for me. Certain people have certain limits, with caffeine intake. Obviously, there are recommendations of caffeine intake. So, I cringe when I walk by and I see someone with a bang because I know exactly how much caffeine content is in that, right? So it really depends on what it is and how much you're taking in, and everyone's different. And I'm not going to try to tell someone how to live their life, but it's really moderation and taking care of yourself and knowing how much you can take in. A Starbucks K cup, I think, is like 80 milligrams of caffeine, whereas a Bang might be 320 milligrams. So it's just being aware of those kind of things and what we're actually putting in our body. I have no clue if that's the actual kind of caffeine content. So I'm just saying. But it's just being aware of that kind of stuff, and make sure we're taking care of ourselves, because things like caffeine, they can make you focus, they can wake you up, but at the same time, you can hit a level where it makes you shaky and it can cause anxiety. So it's just being aware of what we're putting in.
I mean, if someone's like, at that point, where they're shaky, where they're getting anxiety, and they're still looking for something to, help them focus, wake them up a little more, what alternatives out there are there that you recommend?
Me personally, I would talk to my general practitioner. I would talk to someone I know. I would talk to a nutritionist. I have talked to a nutritionist. And making sure I'm eating right. Because I think again, it's lifestyle choices and how we do things throughout our lives. Example, I know personally that the way I wake up in the morning, the first hour of my day, I know what helps me optimally wake up and helps me be ready to go when the day starts. I know that if I sit and watch TV instead of hopping on the treadmill or lifting some weights, my day's going to go horribly because I'm just not mentally ready, and that has nothing to do with the 3 coffees I have on the way to work, or something like that. But there are different lifestyle changes we can make, that can help us out mentally, physically. Getting more sleep. How many hours of sleep should we get every night? 8.
Hey.
There we go. At least 8. But there are different things that we can do to help us sleep better. Do we have a sleep ritual? Do we have good sleep hygiene? Um, Again, the buzzword is holistic wellness. So when we're looking at one thing, we're actually looking at everything, and seeing where we can go.
And then in terms of like, actually playing the game, you talk about how, I guess, unhealthy kind of gaming is. Like you're just sitting there, you're not active, you're just gaming. How much do you recommend that people are actually practicing, are in the game? Is there a point where it's too much? You're spending 8, 10 hours a day playing League of Legends. Is that, not going to help you get better at a certain point?
Um, Honestly, I'm not sure. But I thought I haven't seen any of these questions. Just first and foremost, I have no clue what's coming. But uh, you know, when we're thinking about sedentary or not moving, there's no difference in someone playing League of Legends out there for 6 hours and me being at work for 8 hours at my desk. So it's just one of those things where, again, what am I doing with the rest of my time during the week? Am I making sure I'm getting some activity in? Am I making sure I'm hitting, you know, 20, 30 minutes a day of activity, and that can be, just walking or doing chores around the house, but just getting some activity in to make sure I'm healthy in those ways.
I actually also have something to add on to that. Yeah, thanks, pass off. Yes.
Yeah. So going off of that question as well, whenever, obviously, as Tristan was preaching a little bit too, everything in moderation is a good idea. Obviously, you can't just jump into it, consistently for 10 hours a day because that gets to wear on you mentally. And I'm speaking from experience. I'm one of those, new players who kind of came up in the rankings during COVID. That's where I spent most of my time playing the game and practicing my skills. But the important part that I realized is that, practicing for 11 hours a day isn't always a good thing for one reason. Burnout hits you a lot quicker the more invested and the more time you spend in something. And you alluded to this actually earlier, Tristan. Um, you know, Having general practice here in our esports lab for like 2 hours on a weeknight is probably not even scratching the surface of what most of these players put in and commit to their games. But going off of like 8 to 10 hours, it's a full time job at that point. And there's very few people I've spoken with who are like, yeah, my 8 hours a day, all of them were well spent, and are super unwilling to go to work the next day because they just do too much too quickly. And that could definitely relate to hobbies as well. Obviously, you wouldn't go work out for 5-10 hours.
I'd pass out.
Yeah, and while esports isn't as physically demanding as physical activity is to a certain degree, mentally you get stretched really thin, and when you're sleepy or when you're just mentally exhausted, every mistake feels 3 times as magnanimous as it would if you were at a level head and mentally ready to compete in something.
I don't think we talk enough about burnout in esports.
Right.
And again, this is something we've grown up loving to do. And to go from something we love to do to something that we are now very passionate in, very competitive in, and also facing the best competitive players we've ever faced is hard,
Yeah.
right?
Oh God. Yeah.
And so I think burnout is very real and something that needs to be talked about more. I think that's something that we try to do. This is nothing against other people, other schools, other programs, or anything like that. But I mean, sometimes you see schools, or not even schools, but just club teams that are in 3, 4 leagues at
Yeah.
once. And I personally, I couldn't do it.
Right.
And I just want to make sure that we're always having that conversation where we're taking care of ourselves first, to to make sure we can be students at the end of the day.
Yeah, interested. You've gotten a little personal with some of your intimate experiences with gaming and burnout in this episode. So I feel like it's only fair that I can do that for a little bit as well. So for those of you who don't know much about me, I'm actually a professional level esports commentator. I mainly focus on Smash Bros, but as you know, I run most of the other streams here for our esports team here at Valpo, and I can also count on two hands the amount of times I've been working way too hard, commentating 3-4 nights a week for like 2 months straight, and it gets to be a lot at some points as well. It's something I enjoy doing, and something that I've been able to grow a lot from doing. It's actually the reason I chose Valpo, so I could work on a communications major as well. But again, there's a certain extent to where sometimes you just need to take it easy a little bit. I've taken a couple burnout breaks. I'm kind of on one right now in terms of that regard. I'm also doing that to focus more on this program and my efforts here as well. But yeah, so burnout might be deep enough of a topic that we can get into a little bit in another one of our future episodes. But we are coming up on the half an hour mark. Which is probably about time for us to go. Tristan, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Beacon Breakdown. Do you have any closing remarks for the people at home?
No, really, talk about it. Talk about it with your teammates. Ask for help. When it comes to physical health, wellness, sleep, nutrition, whatever it is, just talk to someone about it because there's always people willing to help out. Always people that want to take care of you. When you're surrounding yourself with positive people, like at all times, you're only going to go up. So make sure we're talking about it and letting people know when we need help with something.
Yes, I couldn't agree more, Tristan. So, and make sure as well, I got something to add to that. moderation is a very good idea. You want to jump in wholeheartedly to something that's great, especially if you have a plan. But sometimes you just need to take it easy, ease your way into it, and eventually, once you know you're more capable of going a little bit further, that's when you should really jump on it. For Tristan Leonard and everyone here at the Valpo Esports program, actually, as well as Mike, who was running production and had a couple questions for us earlier. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the Beacon Breakdown. Catch us next Monday, same time, same channel, for some more Beacon Breakdown. I'm Laird, Keegan Thompson. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have an excellent day. Take care.